And the really nice thing about designing for insurance now is that it's moving from that one-time subscription thing where you just look at it once a year and you have to have it, to more of a service model.
Today, I am joined once again by Will Jones, Head of Design here at 11FS. How are you today, Will?
I'm good. It's good to be back on the show.
Thanks for joining us again, man. What you been up to? Talk to us. How you been since the last time we had you on here?
Yeah, good, man.
Yeah.
We've been busy, as you know, in the design team. We've been sort of all over the world trying to build financial products, and it's been interesting.
Yeah.
You know, we've been to places like Singapore, South Africa. Where else are we? We're in the US at the moment.
Sweet.
People want new financial products, it turns out.
We still hiring?
We're still hiring.
We're still hiring. Plug.
CVs in.
But so today's episode, we're talking about root insurance and a bit more on a macro scale about designing for insurance as a whole. Just to give you guys a bit of a overview, Root is an American insurance play which not only allows you to customize your insurance policies from the comfort of your phone, but also allows you to improve your policy score by scoring your driving ability, and it does that by using your phone sensors and a bit of machine learning to test your driving over a period of I think around 3 weeks, and then give you an overall score, and that then trickles down into sort of your insurance premium and what they give to you. But insurance as a whole, let's talk about it. So we've seen this whole fintech movement. We're very familiar with it,
yeah.
And then insurance followed shortly after. So what's the pain points in insurance that these whether it's cover, whether it's root, what are they trying to solve here?
I think in sort of previous years, until sort of insurtech as you know it now has become a thing and sort of becoming revolutionised. I think in previous years it's been almost a very distant thing for people. It's something that you need to have there, but you are very much unwilling to engage with.
Yeah.
Because setting it up, you're going to have to answer a lot of questions. It's asking you things like, for example, home insurance, where it's asking you what type of lock you have. No one's able to inspect their door or go to Wix to try and find exactly the same one. That's just not happening. And then also when you're making a claim, it's a huge black box in previous years where you don't know the algorithms or even the processes they're using to decide whether you get cash for what's happened. And it's always a negative experience because the only time you interact with the brand is when they're asking for money up front, or when you're asking them for money because something's horribly wrong.
Yeah.
And the really nice thing about designing for insurance now is that it's moving from that one-time subscription thing where you just look at it once a year and you have to have it, to more of a service model. And we see companies like Vitality in the health insurance space gamifying it a bit more, and companies again like Root in sort of the car insurance space where it is massively gamified, or it has the potential to be, because you're getting a bit of a feedback loop as you're using it. And from a service design perspective, that's a really interesting place to be.
Yeah.
But also, it's the opportunity to engage sort of a younger audience that are used to sort of exciting, disruptive brands in other sectors within this sector as well, and attract an audience through a design that feels a bit fresher, through sort of UI and customer experience that feels on a par with what they expect from other sectors. So as designers, it's interesting. It's got really interesting, much the same as fintech has as well, because there's the opportunity to do a lot more and to be a lot more innovative.
And to hammer down on something like you touched upon earlier, sort of like gamification, and also, as you alluded towards the latter part of your points, making it more of an experience that these sort of younger generation are more used to. What we look at in insurance is just like a whole heap of information which you need to know, because these are your policies, these are things that that you're paying for essentially. So how do we ensure that we design to make this whole this dense amount of information fun and interesting and engaging? Like you mentioned gamification, but we'd love to drill down a little bit and talk about experiences you might have seen.
I think when you're trying to get someone to read a lot of information, it has to be a value exchange.
Yeah.
There has to be something that they're getting out of it.
Yep.
So, for example, in car insurance, if we are helping them understand, the points in a policy, such as, if you don't maintain your tyres, etc., you won't get this money back.
Yeah.
Actually helping them understand when they should do that, and in a way that is delivered, not all as a huge value, but as something that is more contextually designed, where you don't have to wade through reams of things because no one's reading that.
Yeah.
They're just going to go, oh, that's my policy, here we go, I'll have that. And that's the same in a lot of experiences. Like, we've seen onboarding journeys, or even terms and conditions journeys in fintech, where it's sort of going, too long, didn't read, here's one section, this is basically what it says, are you cool with this? Next section, are you cool with this? And actually get people to digest that in a way that's sectioned up as chunks. And I think there are techniques like that that can mean people aren't entirely put off by information. So it's around a value exchange of actually giving them something they can practically use from it, as well as sort of chunking of information and that sort of too long didn't read approach.
Sweet. So, let's jump into some experiences that we see here. So, I guess our first journey would be the routes viewing your driving score. So, what we have here would be your homepage, your insurance card, and then you can have your menu on the bottom, and then one of the options you can choose is viewing your driving score. Then you route to this really pretty page where you have your driving score at the top, a kind of a breakdown of how they've scored it, and then you're able to jump into this other page which kind of shows you how to improve your driving score and what they're looking for in terms of what goes into your driving score. I think another really cool thing is that you're able to also expand on smooth braking, because I think it's a really pretty visual, but it's very easily something that can go over your head. So they offer some context on exactly what you're looking at as well. And I think what we have here really truly is just a really pretty driving school page. But just to give our users a bit of context on how they get this page, I touched on it earlier, but what Root allow you to do is when you first sign up to it, they give you a 3-week period where you drive while your phone is in your car, and they tap into your phone sensors, and then they test things like how sharp you turn, how heavy you brake, and just your overall driving experience, and then they give you that driving score, which you've seen there. One thing I wanted to talk about first was, before we even get to the driving score, that navigation at the bottom, it's a bit of a peeve, because for me it was you're trying to navigate around a lot of information, and you're having to swipe essentially big cars which take up about 80% of the view width of the page, in order to navigate to various parts. What do you think of that kind of navigation itself?
I think it's interesting because I think there are more familiar navigation patterns used. But if you think about typically the mindset of how someone understands insurance, you've got, this is my premium or my policy, but then you have a series of documents that are kind of associated with it, or that broken down. Now, I don't know if that's the sort of the design thinking behind it, but actually you're used to then going, okay, I need to have a look at that and that. And that. It almost feels like email attachments when you're clicking in and having a look at them. I've seen, ways to interact that would be a lot worse than that. And it also gives you the ability to prioritize those and not overload the screen with different things. It also keeps the app structure very simple as well. So I can see the advantages, but I'd love to see, how that tests with users. And how they actually decide on the order that those go in. Presumably it's what people find important or want to look at regularly. But I think, I can't remember from looking at the screen, but you see a lot of insurance apps, or even things like the AA or the RAC, you tend to prioritize something going wrong and an immediate way to go, oh no, I'm broken down, or I've just run over a lamppost. I need to try and see what my insurance company says, and that needs to be front of mind in any of those navigation structures.
No, it makes sense. I guess it's there's always been discussion in tech with in design, which is, do you reduce the cognitive load all the way to a point where it's I'm trying to get you, and there's another example further on which we'll talk about, whereas am I trying to get you to focus on this one thing at this one time, or am I trying to like increase or give you as many things to choose from in order to like prevent your interaction time? And I guess there are some times where people do go too far, and then it becomes a bit like overkill, and it actually just makes it more of a tedious process, which upon first viewing, I kind of felt that way about this navigation. I just felt like there are so many jump off points, and there's so many different use cases I might open up this app for that to get me to like scroll through. But I think you do highlight a point there that it largely depends on sort of like their user testing and what's gone into that.
It does, and I think if they're moving to that model where actually they want an ongoing dialogue with the customer and there's reasons for them to come back and use it, the user has the opportunity to learn how to use it.
Yeah.
I think if they were literally only coming into this app when something's gone wrong or to renew a policy, they can't assume any learning curve at all, and therefore need a more familiar navigation structure. But again, it would come down to testing, wouldn't it?
That's actually an interesting segue, and it's like a bit away from like what we're talking about here. But at what points should you, during your design process, have a feature that, you know, isn't the most easiest to use, but isn't hard to learn? At what point are you then? At what point do you get to a place where you're saying, yeah, these users eventually at some point would learn it, and then like leave them to be, or is it always constantly trying to make sure that users are picking it up off the jump?
I mean, it's a very broad question because it really depends what your app is doing.
Yep.
It really depends on whether you're trying to put any behavioural design in.
Yep.
Whether you are trying to nudge them to use certain features in the first instance and then discover others because it will be better for their cognition of what the app does, or sort of build their journey, or whether you're trying to push certain things that the app does and hide others.
Yeah.
There are reasons why you would do it. I'm always a fan of, especially when you're initially launching an app, unless your sort of quirky navigation or the act of discovering is really part of sort of building that brand and the customer experience, go for a navigation structure that people are familiar with, because if they drop into your app, it's a very short window where you know they will be put off by going, well, it doesn't do what I want it to do. I'll never be able to use this, or it doesn't work like this other one that I've used. So it's a case of being very wary about why you would use a different pattern.
Okay.
And it has to have sort of be a means to an end to achieve a certain goal.
Makes sense. To jump back into Root as well. So what we discussed a bit earlier was this driving score feature, which is like pretty new to this insurance space, and there is this, and you touched upon it earlier, like gamification, like of the experience. I want to know your views on how this, because it does allow you to improve your score every time you drive, and there are a couple kinks in the process which we'll kind of like discuss now, but like overall as sort of a means to keep this interaction sticky, what do you think of this gamification of your score?
I think it's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I think if you are to have, you know, a relationship with your customer beyond just being there for them at bad times, you need to engage them in the activity that they're actually trying to ensure.
Yeah.
I think because this calculates your premium sort of one time after, I think it is about 3 weeks, where it tracks what you're doing, it can drop off there. I think, and I'd have to look into sort of the details of Root a tiny bit further, but I think there is the opportunity to leave it there, sort of learning in the background. But really, you only have to drive well for 3 weeks. During that period, you are really engaged in it because sort of you're focused on achieving that score and getting a lower premium. But after that, is it just sitting there in the background without really any purpose? Because you've got your lower premium at that point. I mean, the other side of the coin says if it's always on, you are going to pay it less attention. You're going to be less engaged because you will literally just forget it's there. There's also the question of sort of invasion of privacy. And I think I think they did studies with this type of technology in the US, and you know, up to about 45% of people said knowing my location at all times is way too far.
Yeah.
I'd never be into that. Compared to, I think it was in the 30s, and people were like, yeah, if it saves me money, I'm kind of cool with it.
Yeah.
With the middle ground, I know that doesn't add up to 100, so
Yeah.
there's a middle ground that are like, maybe.
Yeah.
But as well, I think that it depends what demographic they're going after as well, because people with really high premiums tend to be really young people, because not very good at driving. But incredibly cocky. I know that from when I first started driving. Never any accidents yet, but still, you get close. But otherwise, I think older people, it gets to this point where they've got a great premium. There's an insurer that they trust, and they've been built up. Lots of no claims. The act of moving is quite difficult. So I think for certain people this works really, really well. They're going to be more engaged in this idea of gamification, having seen it in other industries. And if it saves money, it's a really good idea, but it's that question of, is a short time actually getting you a better engagement with the brand, or if it's there all the time? If it's there all the time, you kind of have to make sure that you are okay with them knowing exactly where you are. And personally, I use a lot of services like this, but I don't know if I want them to know exactly where I'm going, exactly whether I'm driving or a passenger. Like, this is using the phone's technology in every possible way. It's invasive, but to save money, it's kind of cool. But I think it could kind of go a little bit further, because actually you have to open the app and you have to look at your score and you have to see how you're doing or what it's learnt. There are other companies. I think there's a product called Snapshot. Progressive, where you, as well as having a phone, you have the opportunity to have a little dongle thing. And when you do things that are going to negatively affect your score, like brake very sharply, it will make a noise. I think that immediate feedback loop, it's not just sort of changing your premium, it also has sort of a societal effect of making better drivers. So it is doing good beyond just reward for the individual, and it's also keeping someone immediately engaged. But on the flip side, it's also probably incredibly annoying. So.
And just to shine a bit more light on this as well, so I was going through the reviews of both of these guys, Snapshot as well, on the app stores, and something that was like constantly brought up was the fact that you touched on it earlier, that because it's on all the time, and I think there is this like benefit of, hey, as you drive more, we give you better score and whatnot, but at the same time, it never turns off. So there's times where people have said, hey, I've been in the back of an Uber, and this driver's bad driving has affected my score as well. And what else? I think someone like was running, and their score was affected by it as well. And it was like, that this like, as much as it's really cool to rely on it, I think there's so many setbacks that they're yet to solve, but interesting play nonetheless.
I think because the technology isn't that developed, so there are questions around like the capabilities of a phone to actually give you accurate data enough to be able to set like a policy price. I think same with early adopters of anything, they generally tend to accept that the technology is going to become more advanced and a little bit more accurate. But when one bad experience, as soon as it gets into the App Store, it's going to put doubts in people's minds.
Fairs.
I think only certain people will be able to overlook that.
I wanted to talk a bit more about the data visualization here. So they have like pulled up on the screen for you here, smooth braking, which is basically a scale from like off track to perfect, and then focus driving, which is like once again off track to perfect, and it kind of have this like wide scale of like where you sit in, but these two ends of the spectrum. Like, is this like clear to you where you stand in this process, especially focused driving?
I think smooth braking is clear.
Smooth.
But it potentially ignores the fact that you like, is it dangerous to make someone want smooth brake all the time when sometimes you do need to do a bit hard braking?
Fair.
But to be honest, in that situation, you're going to forget that your insurer is watching. For focus driving, I don't know how clear that is and how it's calculated. So So I think this starts to do a really good job of opening up that black box of insurance as to how you are analysed and reviewed and how your premium is set. But there are still things within here where it is a little bit of a black box as to how it's calculated. I really like that at this level though, it's kept really simple.
Yeah.
It's just kept as a score, and there are ways to tap in and actually see what effects you're driving. So I think that's really good. I think from a colour perspective, it's really nice that they've avoided being too alarmist with the lower end of the spectrum.
Okay, so not opting for the reds.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, in this example, we can't see what off-track actually looks like because this person's driving is a little bit higher than that, but it looks like it's going to fade into a purple, which, you know, nicely says, this isn't great, but it doesn't say you are a terrible driver.
Yeah.
Anything that's too judgmental when it's trying to give you a score is going to turn people off.
And also that that sort of driving breakdown of how to improve your score page as well. So just want to get your views on like how good of a job they've done in letting you know what to improve your score. Like for me personally, a big fan of it. Iconography does really well to kind of like take off the good old cognitive load, and I guess they got like a real big animation at the top as well, which just keeps you a bit engaged, a little bit of delight factor. But yeah, just let me get your views on that.
Yeah, I kind of agree on all those points. It's got a delight factor where you can see a car driving, it's kind of fun, but then also there's a fairly serious tone to the way that it talks to you.
Yeah.
Also, it doesn't give you too much to understand.
Yeah.
But it gives you that sort of value exchange of, okay, we're going to analyse you, but also we're going to tell you how to not cheat the system.
Yeah.
How to be a
better driver. Yeah.
Because, you know, over those 3 weeks, if you spend a bit of time doing that, it's going to have a lasting effect on the way that you drive.
And final question before we move on, because you briefly touched on it as well, is you said the tone of voice, like still a bit serious, but also like in some parts it's like very fun, where like you might have, you put good driving on the map, my friend. But at the same time, as you said, like there's this need to be like serious because it's a very like good it's driving, and we know sort of the stigmas around bad driving. So want to get your opinion on how do you strike that balance, like of trying to be serious but also trying to be friendly as well.
I think it's interesting. I'm thinking of other things for brands that have a really strong personality or tone of voice. For example, think of like Virgin Atlantic's, if you've ever flown with like their safety announcement, it is ridiculous. But it is a very serious thing. Like they get a load of comedians to talk about it, but the Virgin Atlantic brand is youthful, it's fun. Yeah. And it has this sort of off-the-wall irreverence that other airlines just don't have.
Okay.
I think with Route, they could be less serious in my mind. Okay. Just because knowing that the vast majority of people that they're going to save money for and the people that are up for this sort of emerging technology are going to be a more youthful set of drivers. Yes. I think they could do more to connect with it. I'm not talking about, you know, like hello fellow kids.
Yeah,
like, like it's not that.
Yeah.
I think even in the rankings they've got where it's like good. Like you could offer more. Than it could be a little bit more playful. Yeah. When you go to then explain exactly how to do it. When I said serious, I kind of meant matter of fact. Yeah. Like you need short sentences. Just do this, do this, do this. That's going to give you better driving score. Yeah. That's good to understand like that, broken down in that way. It doesn't need to be using like insurers' language. Yeah. That's something that is really nice within here. It doesn't talk too much around premiums and policies and any expansion of that. It tries to use a tone of voice that will resonate with the customer. So they're doing a good job there, I think.
All right, sweet. Jump onto this next journey, which is a brief look into sort of the making a claim process and some of the other information they give you around what happens when you're in an accident and whatnot. So we'll jump to that now. So what you do, once again, you go through the bottom carousel of options, you go to file a claim, and you jump into the file a claim page. And I think what's really cool about that is just like big blue buttons, so you know, like it's hard to miss it. You get these two, yes or no, and I think what's really cool is that you select no. Don't worry, we'll walk you through the processes, the text you're given there, just kind of letting you know that it's okay. If you don't understand this, then like we'll ease you through this. Also, just a notification at the bottom that hey, like we save your answers as you go along, and then yes, it tells you hey, like this may look familiar, but we'll still walk you through it as well. Then we jump back into sort of like the main file a claim page, and in my opinion, gives you like this really cool what to do when you're in an accident. Even just something as cool as like don't immediately admit a fault, which is like, it seems a bit insidious, but I guess it's good advice because it's coming from the insurance, and they're telling you like how to, not telling you that if you're wrong, run away from the scene, but here's procedure to go through, and I think that's pretty cool as well. And then they take you through a bit more of what to do if you request roadside assistance as well, and what kind of roadside assistance they offer you, and they take you through like a journey of what services you might need and you might not need. So first things first, once you jump into like a process, they have like this like really incremental step-by-step process, which we've discussed before. We talk about a lot on Homescreen, but like the yes and no buttons are like comically large. And it's like, yeah, I get. So I guess the point always has been, and whenever we've had people on, the thing is, and as you said earlier, try to get people to focus on one task. But right now, this is like yes and no. Yeah. So like, could we not fit in a couple more things beneath it? Have we like gone too far down the spectrum with like trying to like get users to focus on one task at a time? Yeah.
I think this does a good job, to be honest.
Yeah.
You initially have sort of those options. I think it's start making a claim, and then you've got roadside assistance, or I've had an accident. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think because you have those clear options at the start, that's really the biggest decision that you're making. And I think colour is used really well there.
Yeah, definitely.
Making a claim, big blue button. That's great. It's a calming colour.
Yeah.
You know that it's not as immediate as the sections below, where it uses orange. Like RAC is orange.
Yeah.
Like, that is an alert colour. That works really well to go, right, these are immediate, these are things that you can do exactly while you're here. I think going through the making a claim journey, doing it one by one and answering yes or no removes any ambiguity as well. It's very hard to write questions like that, and may take longer, especially when there's a lot of complicated things you're asking someone. But yes or no is the simplest thing that you can answer.
No, fair.
And I like that regardless of whether you press yes or whether you press yo. There's an app. Yeah, that's down with the kids. Yes or no, they both flash green. So there's never a you've pressed no, therefore it's a bad thing. Whereas there'll be a tendency to do that in a lot of apps. But I think breaking it down like that is a good idea. I haven't seen exactly how long that process would end up being. But I think there would be instances where selecting from a list could speed it up. And that might happen later in the journey. It's possible that this follows, the script that you'd actually get if you called up. Where they are asking you to enter yes or no. That always feels like it takes a very long time. In doing it sort of in a phone, it may not, but the cognitive load is definitely very low on this one.
And I think fair point you brought up there that this is usually quite like a daunting task for people to go through. So like to strip it back to it's very simple, like yes or no, kind of helps. I guess you said put the users, ease the user's mind.
I think there can be dangers doing sort of yes or no, a very long decision-based journey, because if you've made a mistake at the first instance, it's going to take you a while to rectify that. You suddenly realise a bit down the line, oh, actually, I should have said this at the start, and then you got to start over.
All over again, fairs. And also something I wanted to discuss was just like these contextual journeys it takes you down. So like, no, okay, don't worry, like we'll walk you through it, yes. And I guess that one kind of takes you through a more advanced version. What's your thoughts on that? Like, why not just put users all in the journey? I think there is like a UX heuristic which talks about like giving super users an ability to fast track through process if necessary. But love to get like your point on those like two avenues.
It's an interesting one. If you give people the opportunity to fast track, potentially that doesn't give the insurer the information that they need. There might be a reason why you can't do that. Because otherwise people will assume they can answer the same thing as last time and maybe give false information about a claim when they didn't mean to do that. I'm not an insurer. but that there is a danger of that, and what do you actually get them to fast track through? But it would be a good thing. But ultimately, is someone making 6 claims a year?
Yeah.
If they are, there's something seriously wrong with their driving and/or vehicle.
Yeah, it's bigger than tech at that point.
Yeah, the problem's bigger than tech.
So finally, before we get you out of here, there is like an educational piece with like after an accident and roadside assistance. I want to get your views on like how well you feel like they've done here in trying to like help users understand what to do after an accident, because that's quite like a serious like moment, and I feel like they've done like really well to make it seem not too serious. Not, as you said, using colours like blue, even just using illustrations as well. Like the way they use illustrations is very like cartoonesque as well. So it's like, yeah, it's not. I mean, yeah, you've been in an accident, but here's what to do after an accident. It's very like light. But yeah, I want to get your views on like how they've done it.
I think this is great.
Yeah.
I think users have to know it's there, because in the heat of the moment,
you might not. Yeah.
Unless you know that's there, you're not going to go, oh wait, hang on, before I literally do anything, I'm going to go into my Shura's app, I'm going to boot it up, I'm going to, sorry, not boot it up, I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to follow this checklist.
Yeah.
If you know it's there, like, I would do that.
Yeah.
Because actually it feels like they've given real consideration to the prioritisation of this. Call the police straight away, or the emergency services. Before you do anything, like immediately admit fault. Taking photos, getting contact information, then finally letting them know.
Yeah.
Again, it's like a set of 5, which people find really easy to digest as a list.
Yeah.
Icons are playing a really good job here,
Yeah.
and they also, like the style of this again it's shorter sentences. It's very matter of fact, and it's very easy to follow, much the same as other parts of the journey that we went through. So I think it's a really good idea. It's just discoverability is the key to this.
Yeah.
And like you said at the start, if you're swiping through to try and access it, other apps have I've had an emergency, and then it will give you this, so even if you're a first-time user, that's what you do. And
so
that would be a benefit.
So from what you've seen, would you say that this is like good feature, but a bit too hidden?
Potentially.
Yeah, fair.
Potentially. I mean, when you're in that first instance of trying to learn, you'll do a set of driving score, that can be prioritised.
Yeah.
But it's almost thinking about modes of the app. When you've got your premium, is it then, I'm in an insured mode where I'm going to engage with it when something's gone wrong, and it becomes sort of slightly more prioritised.
Sweet. No, I think that's all we have for Journeys today. So thank you for joining us.
No problem.
Before you leave us for another few months, is there anything that in design you're particularly excited about? Any books that you're reading?
There's that one that we've both got.
Oh yes.
Good, isn't it?
The science. Secret Lives of Colours. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good read to understand how and where sort of colour is used, and a bit of a story behind them.
Yeah.
I find it useful just to, it's the names of colour that you can have through it, and tell a bit of a story behind it. How practical it is in terms of the use of it, I don't exactly know, but
have you started using it in like projects yet?
Not yet. I will be though.
Yeah.
I hope you will as well.
No, definitely. And if for what you can tell us, what's the next big thing you're working on, Will?
We're doing a lot of work in the Middle East at the moment, and it's really interesting to see how culture is changing there, and how the work that we're doing can be part of a positive story rather than any negative associations that there previously have been in certain areas around there. And I think the development of fintech is part of a progressive movement to become sort of a little more relaxed in laws and things. That sounds way more grand than it should be, but it's nice to have a piece of work that is slightly different from what we normally do, and certainly working in a culture that is vastly different to ours. And what we're doing at the moment is really honing how we bring cultural research through into creation of brand and also product experience and service design.
Sweet. So once again, call to designers, if you want to get away from London this winter, get yourself to the sunny Middle East. We might have something for you. But yeah, that's all we have time for today, guys. Thanks so much for stopping by. Tune in next week for more insights and user journeys. you want to see more of us, head over to 11FS Pulse. That's pulse.11fs.com, where you can also request a demo if you've got any questions about the product or want to suggest a journey for us to include on our platform or the show. Hit us up on pulse@11fs.com or find us on Twitter at 11FS Pulse. Will, where can people find out more about what you do?
This is where I should maintain my social profiles more regularly.
Yeah, we all should. We all should. I don't even get tagged on these.
I'll just make it much harder and go on the 11FS website.
Yeah. Same for me too.
Before I come on next time, I'll have a way more active Twitter.
Yeah, hey, I'll put you to it. I'll hold you to it. Great. Anyway, we'll see you guys next week. Bye for now. Homescreen is a show all about product design, where we showcase some of the best examples of user experiences from the 11FS Pulse research platform. Pulse is what our customers use to do their benchmarking, and it includes over 2,500 user journeys from financial service products all around the world.